Hello there, Choralosophy audience. I'm Chris Muntz. I guess I'm going to call this episode 30, although it's not going to be a very long episode. As you all probably know, the world has changed quite a bit since I broadcast last. My plan for the next time I was to reach out and speak to you has changed a little bit, so I will give you the rundown of what it is that we're going to talk about. Here's what I was going to do. What I was going to do was to talk to you today a little bit about the way I see the best pre-contest or pre-festival rehearsal. What do you do with your kids when you've got one more rehearsal left? The music's not going to really get more prepared between now and festival, so what do you do? How do you spend that time? How do you focus their attention on the things that matter and relax their nerves for the performance? And I'm still going to talk to you a little bit about that, but of course we are now living in a world where we don't know when our next festival will be. A lot of you have had yours canceled. A lot of you have had your events, your competitions suspended, all of those types of things. We got lucky at our school. We got ours in about 4 days before the state organization canceled all music festivals. In fact, it happened to our band during midstream. Our band got shut down during their competition. So we don't know when these things are going to happen again, but I still think these ideas are helpful. But then I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about one of my plans for going online. So what am I going to do in my classroom, my virtual classroom, if and when my school announces online learning? We are currently on spring break. I'm in Key West. Some of you who have been listening for a while might remember my episode with Adam Paltrowitz from last year. Last summer was recorded here. My dad lives here a good portion of the year, and so we had come down, and it very well might be that we're stuck here. Who knows? We will find out, but there are no cases of coronavirus in Key West or in the Monroe County, Florida Keys area, so it's we actually went to a safer place as of now as far as the virus goes, so we will see. It's not super easy to travel down here, so if we're stuck here and the school announces online learning, I might be teaching choir from right here in the Florida Keys, and I gotta tell you, that doesn't suck as bad as some things might suck, so I'm going to make the best of it. Of course, all of you are in different situations out there listening in parts of the country that might be more severely affected. And of course, my thoughts and my prayers go out to you. And so over the course of the next short episode, I'm going to talk to you about a couple different topics. How do we, if and when we get those students back in the real classroom, how are we going to teach them? How are we going to get them prepared for their next big performance? And then we will talk about the other eventuality, which means that we might be not seeing our students for a while, so stay tuned. And just in the same kind of preemptive apology for the last time I recorded here in Key West, it's a little bit of a noisier place. Spring break here, and actually I'm surprised at how many people are still here doing their thing on the island. Like I said, there have not been any reported cases as of Sunday, March 15th, and of course by the time you listen to that might have changed, but it's still pretty busy around here, so you might hear chickens. In fact, there are people painting the house here, so you might hear people talking outside the window, so I apologize for this will be a slightly different, pristine audio that you're used to from recording in my studio near Kansas City in my house, so apologies for that. Well, we're going to start out with one of the more obvious online learning resources out there, and of course I'm so fortunate to have been associated with Sight Reading Factory since the beginning of this show, and I'm really proud of one of the things that they're doing during this time of crisis, which is offering free student accounts for schools who have been shut down and have gone online. So of course you can go to sightreadingfactory.com and take advantage of that offer, and that's Don over at Sight Reading Factory is just an awesome guy, and he's trying to help in every way that he can. And so one of the ways that of course I plan on helping, most of my students already have accounts. I don't make them do it mandatory, but I do provide accounts for any student that wants to use them, and so I have the budget at school to go ahead and pay for my Sight Reading Factory account, so I'm going to still do that, which I would encourage you to do that also, simply because Dawn is going to be reaching out to give away a lot of freebies. If you can, from your school, still purchase those student accounts to use during this online, I would encourage you to do that. Of course, any altruistic attempt on Dawn's behalf that he's reaching out to help folks. It would be awesome for those of you who still have the budget to spend at school to go ahead and spend on those accounts. That's probably going to help him a lot. He can give more if he is still having some income coming in from this, so that's really important. But I'm going to start out by talking about some questions I actually got from Christopher Bemler, who Facebook messaged me just today with some questions about how to use Sight Reading Factory on those individual accounts. So I'm just going to go through his little message here and use it as kind of a talking points of what I plan to do with my kids. So he was wondering how we use it with our students. And one of the things that is great about the individual accounts is that you can make assignments. Now, I will tell you that in the past, I have not used it for making assignments. We do so much in-class and individual assessment in person that I've never felt the need to do that. Now, with online school as a looming possibility, that will change. If we go online, I'm going to start creating assignments where students on their individual accounts can turn in a certain number of daily or weekly exercises, which is one great way to go with that. So the great thing about it, though, is that the students can get immediate feedback of whether or not they are correct or incorrect as they read. And of course, you can set it up to be whatever level of difficulty that you need it to be. But I think it's a very helpful thing to be able to have the students know right away whether or not they're right or wrong before even they submit. And so I don't see any value necessarily, this is my opinion, in during this online environment, making them submit exercises where they've gotten it right the first time. Sight reading in the true sense of the word. What you can do is they can set up a challenge mode where it's recording them as they sing, and then they can play it back to, and a little MIDI piano sound will play the notes along with them and along with their recorded voice, so they can hear when it doesn't sync up. They can hear when they sang a different pitch than what the piano played and at a different tempo, or if they missed a rhythm. And that's nice because then they can get it right before they submit it. Okay, so that's an important feature as well that's really, really cool. So that's what I plan to do, is I plan to just have them have a minimum amount of sight reading attempts in the course of a week so that they continue to get what they're getting in class every day in terms of repetitions. So I'm in this time of not being able to see them in person, I'm not super concerned with whether or not I'm evaluating their ability right away to get it right the first time. I just want to see that they're practicing. The next question is, do you allow them to select their own level of difficulty, and can you within a class, right? So you create a class, you've got all your students logged into their accounts, you can assort them into classes, and it gives you almost unlimited amounts of customizability of how the assignment is created. You could assign everyone in your class to the same level, same time signature, same key signature. You could assign them, like I was saying before, to have to just do one attempt, in which case they are going to then turn in whatever their first attempt was. And I'm not saying you shouldn't use that. That's not the claim I'm making at all. I'm not going to, at least not. You know, it's hard to make a prediction right now. I'm thinking maybe we're out of school for a week or two. I'm kind of operating on that assumption. But if we're out of school for more than that, maybe I would eventually say, okay, it's time for a final exam. Here is that one attempt. You're going to set this level and go one attempt, and I'm going to grade you based on how you do. You get as prepared as you can. But at this point, I'm not planning to do that. So to answer Christopher's question, I will let them read at the level that they have been already pre-tested for. So it kind of depends on how your classroom has already been set up. You could do a pre-test online, I guess, in theory. You could have them try a one attempt, see how they do at a certain level. But what we do in my class anyway, and I've shared this on other episodes of the podcast, is we pre-test them in October. Towards the beginning of the year, when they've had a chance to have some of this primer already, and then we get an idea of where they should be, because ultimately my goal is whenever they read by themselves, I want them to be able to read fluently. That means, as in my definition, they aren't stopping to think a whole lot. They are just, it doesn't mean it's perfect, and they might miss a note or rhythm every once in a while, but if you think in terms of fluently and reading English, you could be a fluent English reader and still read a sentence and make a mistake, but no one would say that you weren't fluent. So I kind of think of it that way. I get an idea of where I think they could be by the end of first semester, and I assign them to a level. And then at that point, I reevaluate as each semester goes of whether or not they're ready to move up a level, because I don't want them to move up a level until they're fluent at that level. So if I set a kid at level 1 as a freshman, then they need to be making progress, but they don't get to move on until they've reached fluency in level 1. So that being said, I would assign currently, as I'm doing these online sight reading assignments for the upcoming apocalypse, I would allow the student to select their own level, and with the understanding, and I would communicate this, our school district uses Schoology, and I would make sure that in the instructions they are to look up, and this is probably work I'm going to have to do as we get ready to go back to school online. I'm going to remind them what their level is and that all their submissions need to be at that level or higher. If they want to attempt one that's harder, of course, I'm not going to stop them. You can do that. They're going to be bored at home with lots to do online, so they can do that. But I'm going to let them choose their own level, and the reason for that is it would be way more work for you as the teacher to try to go in and assign people to a specific class by level. I think it would be easier to simply choose your own level, choose your own time signature, choose your own key signature, and as long as they're working within the appropriate level, they should be able to do that. Another question Chris asked was, how often do you want them to move up in level? I kind of just addressed that in the previous answer, which was I don't have a timeline for them. I'm very philosophically, and this is pretty recent, actually, as a result of doing this show and talking through things with people. I've been thinking a lot more lately. I don't have a timeline for kids on when they move up. If they are doing the work and they are getting better, I'm happy. And I don't care where they started, and I quite frankly don't care where they finish. Not everyone has the same intuitive musical innate ear, meaning the pitch retention when they're reading a cappella is one of the bigger challenges for a lot of kids. And so I want them working on the mechanics of it. And like I said, they're going to move up when they have achieved fluency and a level. And that's all there is to that. So I think I apologize to anyone who wants a stricter timeline for what they do in their class. I can't offer one because I don't think that's necessarily the best idea. And so ultimately, to kind of wrap all those answers together, I think Sight Reading Factory for this online learning environment is going to be the best possible case for a lot of their continued literacy. In fact, I can even see some upsides of increasing the amount of time kids are spending on this on their own, which currently, depending on, you could be assigning assignments already, in which case you're good to go. Like I said, I have not been doing that because we do it so much in class and my kids read really, really well. And so I haven't felt the need to do that. That's going to change now, of course, as we go back to school online. So sightreadingfactory.com, if you don't already have your membership, go get one. You can use Choralosophy at checkout, get 10% off. And like I said, if you have a budget to pay Don for those memberships, I encourage you to do that for your students and to do that for Don, because he is going to be probably giving away lots of free ones over the next month or two. And I'm sure he would appreciate anyone who can pay to pay. That's kind of always been the philosophy on this show too. We have a Patreon, we have other ways to support the show, but of course the content is free, and anytime you're offering free content, you're kind of relying on people to say, hey, you're doing an awesome thing, I want to support you. So on that same topic, one of the things that I was going to talk to you about today too was this idea of the perfect pre-festival rehearsal. So let's say the coronavirus apocalypse settles down and ends, and we all return back to normal life, and we have a contest coming up tomorrow or the next day, and we get one final rehearsal. What are some of your rituals, some of your routines? Are you one of those teachers who feels quite a bit of stress and pressure? Do you transfer that stress and pressure to the students, to the singers? Does that final rehearsal kind of look like frantic shopping, looking for toilet paper right now? So are you trying to cram in every little detail you possibly can, making sure they don't forget that one little cutoff? What if they miss that little dotted rhythm there? Did we get that vowel on measure 32 to lock in? I think there is a danger, at least in my philosophy, there is a danger of over detailing singers at the very last rehearsal, because ultimately, I think if we're really honest with ourselves, once we get to that last rehearsal, the music is going to be what the music's going to be. And what is important in that final rehearsal, in my mind, is how the students and how the singers feel about what they are about to present, and is it their best. That being said, I also do not land on the side of a run it one time and then sit and relax mentality. I want them working for an entire hour. I just like to be careful that they aren't working too much on tiny little details that they will probably forget the next day anyway. So here's my approach. Philosophically, I think that this is something that I can stand behind, but also it's years and years of trial and error. I used to be one of those stress ball final rehearsal teachers. I'm a very detail-oriented musician, and I want everything to be perfect. I want to instill in my students that that performance is important. So of course I wanted to bring as many really important concepts into that final rehearsal so they're fresh in their mind as possible. And I became susceptible over the years as a young teacher to letting that stress transfer into my students, into my singers. They were starting to feel the pressure. They don't want to let me down. They don't want to let each other down. All of those things started to become a negative, I think, looking back on it. And so over the years, I've been adjusting to a new philosophy. So I also want to make sure that I say from the outset that this is not a claim to be the correct way to run a final rehearsal, but for those of you who maybe find this to be a struggle in your career as to how to approach that final rehearsal, I'm just going to offer this up as something that I feel like works really well. So again, I'll present this to you not as the correct approach, but it's just as my approach, and I hope it helps you. Number one, it's not going to be perfect, so chill. Instill chill into your singers. There is nothing you can do in that final rehearsal to make the music perfect, because that doesn't exist. And I think you can communicate that to singers in a way that doesn't come across as, it doesn't matter if it's good or not. That's not what I mean. But there is a certain, as a conductor, we are the one who makes the decision of where is that line between perfect for us or the best for us that we possibly can do, something that we can still feel proud of, but with looking at those mistakes and those other types of imperfections in a healthy way. Number two, your stress that you show will be magnified by your singers. So whatever you send out into the rehearsal, they are going to get back. So be careful showing stress in that final rehearsal. The final rehearsal should be focused on singer-directed final details as much as possible, and fixes. They're the ones in the trenches. They're the ones within their sections, hearing and seeing and doing. Now, your ideas as the conductor should be present in that final rehearsal to also, but each singer has just as much invested in a bunch of these little details that they want to fix as you do. And I think sometimes we forget that. There are singers within all of our choirs at every level who for weeks probably have been driven crazy by one little thing someone in their section keeps doing and you don't ever say anything about it. Right? And I think the conductor ego over the years and generations has caused that to be more of a problem than it is. I try to make that not an issue in my choir by encouraging people to raise their hand and say things that they are hearing that I'm not hearing. I want them to tell me those things. Ultimately, when we go on stage, if your conductor ego is the issue, you want to look good too. And the better it sounds, the better you'll look. And if you got there because the singers were giving feedback, I think they'll be more engaged and more invested. So if they believe that their opinion matters in that final rehearsal, they are more likely to be invested in all those fixes that you're trying to get across. So encourage them to voice those things. If your demeanor is calm, the singers will bring less nerves into the performance. You can show intensity of purpose while also showing a relaxed sense of calm. That might take practice depending on your personality, but you absolutely can do it. Number 5, don't overwhelm them with long lists of things to fix. They're not going to remember everything tomorrow. So the longer the list of details, the less likely they are to fix them. So think big picture and big issues, right? So if you can make a list of 3 or 4 things, maybe 1 or 2 per song, that, guys, if we remember these couple things when we go into this song, they will help a huge amount. And try to figure out what those 1 or 2 things are, that by thinking about 1 or 2 things, they might fix 15 things. 15 spots in the song, but we're going to focus on those big picture issues. So in a rehearsal that I recently filmed for you all, which I'll tell you about that in a minute, one of the songs we talked about vowels only. If we can fix the vowels in these one type, in fact, we got even more specific. They are the ah and o family vowels, the types of vowel that space in the back is so critical, especially in registers for tenors and altos. If those things can be fixed, we fix 15 other things. And that was the way we focused the rehearsal. So one of the things that I've started doing is I've started setting up, in my more advanced groups in particular, something we work up to, ways to record them in performance right before we actually go do the performance. We just had an ambulance go by. I'll edit out as much of that as I can. Apologies, I told you Key West is noisy. So we record. And what I do in that final rehearsal, it's a very relaxed format. But it's very engaging and it's very detail oriented. What we do is we do one song at a time, usually, and perform it straight through, no stopping, right away at the beginning of the rehearsal. Now this is the final rehearsal before contest or festival or whatever it is. Perform the whole thing, and I've got a nice, decent mic set up centrally or in the middle of the riser so you can hear really well. And then we sit them down, just sit straight down. Sing it one time and sit down. And then I plug in the recording and we play it. And we go back, I make them keep their music open, follow along, and then talk about everything that they hear. Everything that they hear. And that's going to take a while because if they're engaged and if they, again, like I said before, if they believe that their opinion about what they hear matters, which is admittedly a culture that you can't create in that one rehearsal, you need to work up to that if you currently don't have that culture. But they'll start talking, and you might even have to limit the feedback because they're giving so much feedback. And then we decide, kind of as a group, what are the big things that we've got to fix? My kids are usually, it's blend things. Like that's usually what they hear right away that they don't like. They don't like the way it sounds because of voices sticking out. And so that's the stuff they want to talk about. At which point we'll work through some things, maybe a couple little spots we might check, and then we'll jump up, we'll sing it again. Maybe not the whole thing, but maybe some portions that were problematic. Sit back down, listen again. Did we fix it? Were we able to fix it? Okay, we fixed it. What are some things you thought about as you were fixing it? What were some things that helped you? Let them raise their hand, let them talk about it. Then you move on. The song's going to be what it's going to be. Go to the next song. Repeat the process. We just did one where there were 3 songs. It was James McMillan's O Radiant Dawn, O'Toole by Usberg, and Thomas Weelk's Hosanna to the Son of David. And we did that process. It was a 1-hour rehearsal, and we did that process with all 3 songs. It took about 20 minutes per song. And they were engaged the entire time, but probably actually only standing and singing for, 20 of the 60 minutes. And the rest of that time was discussing details, collecting feedback, pointing out things to each other's sections. So if you're curious about what that would look like, I went ahead and recorded that rehearsal, partly because I wanted you to see some of the calm demeanor things that I was talking about and just the way I do it. And I wanted you to have that opportunity, again, not because I think the way I do that final rehearsal is like the best way, although it is the best way for me. Like I said before, this is something that you're never quite sure if you're doing that in a good way, I just hope to add this to your list of possibilities. But if you'd like to see what that looks like, I've uploaded that to my Patreon. This is going to be one of those special benefits that Patreon subscribers can see. I don't feel comfortable broadcasting the entire rehearsal to the thousands of downloaders that access this show, just because students in that rehearsal are kind of being picked on at a smaller group or individual level, and I don't want to have that be super, super public. But I feel comfortable on the Patreon doing that because it's a small group of professionals who are really interested in kind of getting into the nitty-gritty details of that, and it's a relatively small audience there. So if you'd like to be a part of that for a lot of reasons, because you support the show, you support the topics that we discuss here. Like I said before, when I was talking about Dawn and Sight Reading Factory, you see that this is a valuable resource to you and you'd like to be a part of that, for as little as $3 a month. That's a coffee at Starbucks. you can jump on that Patreon page, and there are some other levels above that if you'd like to get some cool swag and other things on Patreon, but the $3 level is your ticket in, and that gets you access to all of the patron-only episodes that I've done in the past, plus the one for March will be this full episode, or this full rehearsal, video and audio that you'll be able to see on there, and make comments and ask questions about how that rehearsal went. I think that this might be a pretty valuable resource. So I would encourage you to try that. And even if you don't decide to go on the Patreon, I would encourage you to think about some of those techniques and concepts that I just discussed, and just shoot me an email, choralosophy@gmail.com, or go on the Facebook page, Choralosophers, and join the conversation. I posted a clip of that rehearsal that you can see on there, and I'm just on the Choralosophy Facebook page, the Choralosophy Podcast Facebook page, if you'd like to see a little bit about what that's like. But I do encourage you to head over to Patreon and subscribe for $3 a month or more if you've got more to offer, and you can see the whole thing and see what a rehearsal looks like that's very engaged for an entire hour, but not constantly singing. And I did clip out some of the rehearsal, just so you know. So what we do is we sing, of course, and then we sit down and listen to the whole thing that we just sang. So I clipped out quite a bit of the listening to the whole thing we just sang, because I didn't want you to have to sit through and hear the same audio twice. So it actually will take about 50 minutes to watch, because I clipped out the replays of those things just to save you some time. But that's patreon.com/choralosophy. So I hope you'd check that out. But if not, some final kind of parting thoughts. I decided to make this a pretty short episode, but I do want to talk about a couple other things that are online learning related, in case we have to go there. So the episode the rehearsal that I just was talking to you about is that dream that we all now have of having our kids back in our classroom and get to have a real rehearsal. But if we don't, here are some things I plan to do. I talked about Sight Reading Factory. You all know probably how to do that if you listen to this show. This is probably something you're already planning on doing. Tone Savvy is another website that I use. They are not a sponsor of the show, but I think it's a great site. You can give individual assignments. Those are a little bit pricier individual student accounts, but I think in this time, maybe worth it. You can keep them working on music theory concepts, time signatures, key signatures, the whole 9 yards. And that's kind of a nice tool. I like Zoom. Zoom meeting is a really good tool. I use it for recording all of my remote interviews that you hear on the podcast, and so I'm comfortable with Zoom already. I would encourage you to try it. I find the lag and the interface is a little bit better than things like Skype, and especially if you've got more than one person coming in. So in that vein, what I plan to do is to create collaboration groups. So now this is if we go online for more than about a week. Okay, so here's my plan. If we're online for a week only, then I plan to have that first week be simple things like Sight Reading Factory and Tone Savvy. Turn in, it sounds like busy work, but it's stuff we talk about in class anyway, so it's still beneficial. Turn in some sight reading exercises, turn in some Tone Savvy exercises for a week, and call it good. Okay. If we go beyond a week, then I'm going to start requiring that they turn in evidence that they are learning music. Okay, learning choral music, learning solo vocal music. They are also going to be learning collaboratively. So I plan to assign them, let's say I have a class of 60. I plan on putting them in groups of about 8 to 10 groups of 6 to 8 kids, and giving them a very simple, very easy piece of choral music in PDF form through Schoology, and then requiring that they set up their own collaborative Zoom meetings. And of course, they're going to be at home doing nothing in most cases anyway, so they're going to set up their own Zoom meetings, and they're going to learn together, learn their own piece, and then by some deadline, whether it's hopefully when we've been released to come back to school, they stand up and show me that they learned their song. Now, is it going to be awesome, and does it replace what a choral rehearsal is? No, but we do so much student-led collaboration learning anyway that, again, in my class, that this would be something that would simulate what we do in class, student-led sectionals, for example. So that would be one way. Another way is on the solo side of things, assign an entire class of freshmen, for example, could learn Caro Mio Bene and record it and send it back. You've got 2 weeks, learn it, record it. Just, again, trying to figure out ways to keep them singing and giving me something that I can give them feedback on. So if they submit a recording of themselves singing, I can type back feedback about their ah vowel, or about their breath connection, or about their coordinated vocal onset, if their folds are not coming together on time, or I'll just whatever picky thing I want, and they can continue to get that feedback. So, of course, if we go online for longer than a couple weeks, longer than 3 or 4 weeks, I'm really crossing my fingers that that's not the case in Missouri. But if it is, then we start to talk about things like final projects. And I'm trying to stay away from research projects as much as possible, because that's not what my class is. We are a performance class. And so I want to keep them performing into their Chromebooks. That's really what I want them to be doing. So it could be the songs we were going to do in our final concert of the year, and learn your part. Show me in a recording that you've learned your part. And then if we get to come back to school, maybe we'll put on some kind of a mock concert, a celebration that we're back. And we'll already have the music learned. And again, will it be as detailed and as polished as it would have been had we been in rehearsal all the time? No. But the way I'm looking at this is, it's either that or we go to school all summer. We're going to do stuff online, and we're going to get as much interaction between myself and my students as we possibly can, because it's either that or we're not getting credit for these days of school. And why not look at it on the positive side, which is my brand? Look at the bright side and do as much as we possibly can in the time we have online with the students. So I encourage you to get started with thinking about that. Of course, if you have not already, I'm sure most of you have. But again, reach out. Let's start talking about this more on Choralosophers, especially as we're stuck at home. Choralosophers Facebook page is a great place to have that conversation. Or you can jump on the Patreon, watch the rehearsal, listen to some of the back episodes that are only available on there, and that's obviously a great way to have a more private chat, because that's a smaller group. So join up with those things and try to network with me as much as you can during this time, because with our brains put together, we can do a lot for our students. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, and I will probably broadcast from Key West again in the next few weeks and next few days, or weeks if I'm stuck here. And we'll be in touch then. Feel free to reach out, and let's figure out a new way to teach choir. Well, thank you again for listening all the way to the end of that short episode. I'm going to come back to you soon with more online ideas. Of course, I'm scrambling to think about all these things, just as you are. And so as the situation unfolds, you can count on being able to tune in here over the next couple weeks and hear my thoughts and ideas. And as I start to come across people online who seem like they've come up with really great ideas too, I'm going to try to get them on the show and talk about what they're doing in their classroom. One of the things that I recognize when I make this show is that not everybody's teaching situation is the same. So the things that work for me in my classroom might not work in the way your classroom is set up, the way your administration handles things, the way your daily schedule works. But of course, going to an online situation like many of us are, we just going to have to get creative and work together as a profession to invent something new. So thank you so much for tuning in. As always, there are ways that you can join the conversation. The Choralosophy Facebook page, the Choralosophers Facebook group, which is private. You can have a conversation there. You can join the Patreon, as I mentioned in this episode, patreon.com/Choralosophy. You can also send me an email at choralosophy@gmail.com. And last but not least, it's hugely helpful when the show sponsors know that you're listening by using the promo code Choralosophy at Sight Reading Factory, at vocevista.com/Choralosophy. That's that awesome sound wave and overtone analyzing software that you can use with your kids when you see them again. Of course, you can also get your sheet music for the next time you need your sheet music at ryanmain.com and at graphitepublishing.com using that promo code Choralosophy. It's a stressful time, everybody, and we're all in it together, like I said, and feel free to reach out, and let's keep the conversation going.